What? All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of Live Coding Happy Hour. It is January 11th and 10th, depending on where you
Woo.
are in the world today. I specifically call that out today because we have a guest from the 11th. So he's living in the
Yep,
future today. So why don't you go ahead and take a moment and introduce yourself, Andrew?
sure. My name's Andrew Albury-Dor. I'm a ServiceNow developer person working for Auto & General, which is an insurance company in Australia. One of the smaller ones, so no major stress there. Um, I've been working with ServiceNow for 4 years-ish now. Typical route went from service desk,
So what was that?
got
Fuji, Geneva?
Geneva we went live in. Yeah, and I did upgrades to Istanbul and all the way past there. Um, Started on the platform because I was sick of Service Desk. I've been there for a couple of years, and we were bringing in ITSM. Wasn't everyone, and yeah, decided I have a little bit of coding experience, a little bit of web dev. Put my hand up and said, yeah, I'll help administer this new platform, and the management just sort of grabbed it and ran and gave me a whole bunch of backlog pretty much day one. It's like, oh, the implementation partner didn't do this, so off you go. And yeah, cut my teeth
Awesome.
doing emails and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, so that's a fairly common story. Probably 1 in 3 devs I run into is roughly along those lines. As they were
Yeah.
at a company, they worked in or around the service desk, and then they got ServiceNow, and or they were using ServiceNow, and they wanted to do more with it, and that's how they
Hmm.
they started this. So awesome. So welcome. I'm Andrew Barnes, developer advocate at ServiceNow. I've been with the company a little over a year. I've been doing ServiceNow development for a little over 5 years. I started on Eureka, um, which was very fun. Eureka. It's fun to say Eureka.
UI 11, I think. At least we started on 15.
Yeah, we started with 11 and then moved to 15. So yeah, I remember that transition. That was a big jump.
Mm.
So specialize in doing development at scale, managing development teams, custom development, and integrations. But any of the core platform features are my bailiwick here at ServiceNow, and we're just excited to be here today. So as I said, we're living in the future here.
Yep.
Andrew and Andrew
Always.
are spanning the time series of the world here, and we're going to be doing automation today with
Hmm.
Google Suite, and we're going to be getting into pulling some users and groups information and or maybe pushing some. Why don't you describe a little bit more before we drop into the screen share? What our goal is today.
Sure. So my organization uses Google Apps, specifically Gmail and the groups there for like email distribution, that sort of stuff. We have, I think it's been manually configured, managers and owners of groups, and those people are kind of responsible for who are the members of the groups. And going from that, I looked at the number one request item that we get submitted from our company, and it is, of course, removing people to groups, or like creating a new group, or it's just, yeah, of course, this sort of Google admin crap that people are doing manually, because you got to log into to the web interface, you got to go add a group, all this sort of stuff. So I was on developer.servicenow.com, and I was doing some training on IntegrationHub, and one of the, I think it might have been Madrid or maybe even London back in the day, one of the trainings was the IP info spoke, where you go and you talk to an API to get your external facing IP address for whatever it was at the time. And I sort of built the spoke, and I had one of those aha moments where you say, like, I can see what's happening. I can see exactly how this is going to save so much time in our business. I want to go and do it. So that's what I did about 6 months ago. I sat down and I spent a couple of days understanding the Google API. I say under my breath doing OAuth, which is yeah, a whole thing. It's kind of working in my PDI. I'm getting an hour token lease. So we've got about an hour to get all this fixed. Then we have to release the token. I'll sort that out in prod. That's what everyone says. And so, yeah, like I've built some basic actions, which are like query the groups, get the users. I'll run through some of those. But what I'm looking at doing is bringing in all of the groups that we have in our GSuite application, mapping them to users who is the owner and manager and who are in them, so that we can present that in a catalog item and have people update them on the fly.
Ooh, I'm gonna have feedback on that in a minute.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible host today because I stored that, traditionally we have a drink and we review it at the end, and it being 7:30 a.m. for you, you're not going to drink so much. But why don't you introduce what you're going to drink,
Yeah.
and hopefully not safe for work drinking.
Yeah. So I've got Dare iced coffee, double espresso, because it
There.
is bloody early in the morning. um,
That's
but
awesome.
in the spirit of life coding happy hour, I did grab my favorite bottle of whiskey,
Ooh.
which is a Glenfarclas 26-year-old that I picked up from the distillery in Scotland a couple of years back. I haven't finished it yet. I've been saving it for special occasions, and this would have classified if it wasn't 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah, you can have it at the end of the day today. You can
Yeah,
have a
I'll have one tonight.
little sip. So for me, I am having a new whiskey for me, which is Jefferson's Ocean aged at sea. And yes, the bottle is empty because it's in my decanter, but I have a lovely apportionment of it here that I'll be drinking
Ooh,
today.
is that a
Uh,
Norland glass?
it is. I don't know what kind of glass it
Oh,
is. It's definitely a vacuum. So
mhm.
it's a two panes of glass, and it's a vacuum between them to keep it
It's cool.
from getting cooled down. One of my friends at ServiceNow introduced me to this glass in a blind taste testing, and it actually tasted better in this glass. The same
Mm.
thing. I didn't know they were the same when he gave it to me. He said, "Here, taste this and taste this," and I was like, "This tastes better. I like it better." And he's like, "They're the same. It's the
Yeah.
glass." And I was like, "All right, I'll get some." So I have two of those. So in a past life, hilariously, I was a Google Apps administrator.
Oh, really? Perfect. I've got some questions.
So I have done tons of stuff with the Google Apps APIs, specifically around the users and groups, and so all the mail pieces,
Right.
because I formerly ran enterprise applications, specifically mail stuff, and we transitioned from a groupware product, GroupWise, to using Google Apps, and so I did lots of that. It's a little old now because
Mm.
it's a few years old, but I have lots of Google Apps API experience, so this will be fun. So
Awesome.
let's start the share, and you'll pull open your instance, and we'll
Sure.
start solving. Well, you'll give us a little bit of what you've already done, and then we'll start solving the first problem.
Yeah. Okay. So all good. Sharing. Okay.
The sharing. Oh, transition. Yes, sharing looks good.
Yeah. Awesome. So I have jump back over here. So this is how far I've got. I've created a bunch of actions based on the here we go, the admin APK. Sorry, the SDK over
SDK.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they've changed this up a bit, but pretty much I went through and I read the basic API for groups, and I created a spoke for each and went through and tested them. Luckily, I do have a old school personal instance of GSuite that isn't licensed. It's like if you registered it back in the day, you can keep it forever for free or something. Thank you,
Yes,
Google.
I have one of
Yeah,
those.
yeah, it's
But I have
awesome.
like 3 of them, but I have one that I really use a lot.
Yeah, is it on an embarrassing domain? Because mine kind of is.
No, mine is my name, so
Oh,
it's not
that's
on an
handy.
embarrassing domain.
Yeah, so mine is
Well,
on a domain
depends
called
on whether or not I'm embarrassed about me.
yeah, mine's actually on a domain called Stationery Review, and it may or may not have been because I had a website where I reviewed stationery um,
That
back
that's
back in the day.
that's a that's fun. I like that.
Yeah,
Reviewing stationery.
yeah, you get a
So
lot of free pens sent to you.
so did you check to see if I haven't actually checked to see is there an open API spec?
I I did some searching when New York came out, and they allowed you to import the Open API stuff.
Yep.
Um, I found something that somebody else had written, and it didn't.
Had like done it, but it
Yeah,
wasn't
and
Google's.
yes, that's right. And so I couldn't. I tried to use it, but there was a bit much. Uh, it was messy. It didn't really work properly, and it had too much stuff. I only really wanted the groups management, and
Okay.
it had the full Google API, which was far too much. Um,
Yeah,
but
and
yeah, I
so the
did.
reason I asked that is for our audience is the open APIs. Once you're on New York, you can import, a third party's open API spec into ServiceNow in Integration Hub, and that will pull in all of the API methods and details about it, like what the requirements are and the variables, and preload all of that for you. We've highlighted that probably 3 or 4 times on the show here, but it's super powerful when a company does offer those open APIs for you to access, and really can jumpstart that building of your integrations with their system, right? Because you come to this screen, the rest step screen in Integration Hub, and if you have an open API spec, you just choose the method and it populates so much stuff for you already, uh, you know, uh, all tons of stuff. So, but you didn't
Yeah,
have that available to you, which is fine,
yeah.
doing it old
So
school.
yeah, this one's been on the back burner for a while, and I'd built most of this stuff before New York. Um, and that's also why there's about 800 items in the application when it gets brought across. Because back then, flows and steps and actions were a million different objects.
Yeah, and
Um,
they still are, but they bundle up at
yeah, yeah,
publish time into one entry for an update set. But in that one entry is actually all of those files. They're just
mm,
packaged up so that you don't have to see them, because you really won't be going and touching and looking at those individual files.
yeah.
So how many steps did you create in total, or how many actions did you create?
Actions. I think there's 11. One of them, this one, retrieve all groups in a domain, I think is where we're going to have to start. I haven't finished this one. Um, it was one
Cool.
that I sort of had a look at and couldn't sort of get the response in a way that I liked. So let's have a play. Let's test where I was up to, because I honestly do not remember. Um,
Yeah.
so this is
Go a
retrieve all
test. I
groups.
love the test step right there in the action.
Yeah.
That's so useful. Stationary
Yeah.
review. I love it.
Okay. What did we get back?
You have to embrace the fun stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's not embarrassing. It's fun.
Errors.
Oh, you got a 401 back.
Oh, authorization. Yeah. Let's actually go and do
So
the
go refresh our.
credential. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one. Awesome. We'll try again.
Yeah. So I suspect what you've set up there which is the thing you said you're gonna fix when you get into production. But I suspect you've set up an access token, and what you should set up is a
Is
refresh
the
token.
offline? Yeah.
Not offline, a refresh token. So
Oh,
a
right.
refresh token, so that whenever you do try and access, it will get a new access token as long as the refresh token is active. And so that can be much longer. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
it can be so long that you forget about it. Like I forgot about meetup.com
Yep.
needing so our meetup integration actually stopped working late December because our refresh token expired.
Right.
And I just noticed today
Oh, right.
because
All right.
it was
So
working for a year.
yeah, and I mean, what's working for a year will never stop.
Never
Just like
stops, right?
all of the uh, approval delegations that were in our instance that just happened to have the default end date of the 1st of
20,
1st, 2020.
2020, yeah.
Yep.
All expired on that day. Nice.
Yep. And we've got people emailing us slowly over the period of a couple of weeks. Oh yeah, we've got lots and lots of why aren't my approvals working?
Have you done something proactive, like sent a notice to all of the
Yeah,
owners of the ones
after
that have the date of 2020, January 1?
after we got the first one, I was like, yeah, we should probably do something like that. And so we have sent out an email to everyone that had a approval delegate and been
Oh,
like,
good.
look, this is probably expired. You should probably go update it. So yeah, that crisis averted for that one.
Yay. All right.
Yeah.
So we got a 400 back because I assume we sent them something they didn't like.
Invalid
Yeah.
integer.
Invalid integer value. All right. Well, that doesn't look like an integer value. So
No. What? Oh, where's the API? Let's have a. So what are we looking for? All groups? Get groups. Retrieves a group's properties. That's not quite what we're after. List, maybe? Retrieve all groups of a domain with a given user key. Do not supply a request body with this method.
Okay. And so what were we sending over?
Let's have a look.
Well, one, let's see, the get domain.
Yeah, no body with that one.
Were we not sending something that they're expecting? What was the required things in the API? So
to get there and unique ID for the customer's GSuite account. Domain name there.
So we need the customer ID and the domain, and the user key. So usually with Google ones, like you can just look at the side panel there, and the ones that they list there are the ones you really, really need, which is customer, domain, and user key. Is I suspect are three really required things.
The user key, email or immutable ID of the user if only those groups are to be listed, given the user is a member of.
So we don't need that one, it sounds like.
So we don't need that one. It's just the customer ID and the domain.
All right. And I think we had domain. What was the other thing we were sending?
Customer ID. The unique ID for a customer's GSuite account. Customer ID is also returned part of the user resources. Whereabouts would that be? Customer ID
is one of the return values.
Yeah. So if I get myself using one of the other actions.
You should be able to get your customer ID. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or your
Retrieve.
customer ID.
I don't know if I've built that.
Because
Because most of the stuff I did was groups.
Well, groups retrieve users, don't they?
Yes.
So retrieve all group members retrieves users. Does that
Yeah. Let's test
include the same fields as a user?
This is probably my most recent action where you give it a group and it actually spits out the user records that are associated with that group that I quite like.
Nice.
But what we're probably looking for is more in the
the response body. Yeah. Let's see if we got.
So we've got
emails ID. So that is likely what we're looking.
That's the user one. That's the one that we don't need. I think that was the user key.
Let's see.
Let's go GSuite customer ID.
Yeah, I might even take out the space if the first link isn't the right one.
Security.
Web interface. All right. Well,
so I've got that over here.
And if you need privacy at any point, just let me know. I'll click a button.
Yeah, sure.
Privacy shrubbery.
On open Google Admin Browser Security, clicking on the dashboard. No, don't have a dashboard. Must be an older version. Click on single sign-on. I might just dump this one over here, just in case.
That's what the shrubbery is for.
We'll pop back to Flow Designer and people can
Google
look at the just search. Sorry, this isn't particularly interesting.
So while you're looking for that, I'll fill some time here. So developer.servicenow.com, get your very own instance. Very soon here in the future, we will have our latest release. If you're already a customer, which most of our audience is, you may have already enrolled in the release early testing period, which is started earlier this month. And so Orlando will come out soon, and we will have quite a bit of content for you to cover the new things in Orlando for developers, and we'll highlight them on the show here on the developer blog, which is also on developer.servicenow.com, and the instances that we have available there will start to be available with the new version. And then still need me to fill more air?
I may have just found something. Let's give this a go.
And I suspect that the customer ID is a little private. So if you want to paste that somewhere, let me know and I'll hide the screen.
That's okay. Worst case, I just cancel this Google Apps. It's not going to lose anything. So we were looking at customer ID. It's just customer, I think. What was that? Domain. Let's try.
I mean, you're getting that from the variable you're passing in, though, right? So
yeah, but this way I don't have to type it again. I could just set that as a default. I should probably do that. How did we go?
400. So same
Yeah.
result. You want to try it in that window then? So in the Google, just to make sure that what you've put in there is, so we're abstracting out the ServiceNow part. So throw in your customer string there and the domain and see if that's enough to get us, what we want. So it is.
It is.
The two options here are somehow your REST step isn't quite right, or we don't have enough authorization. So let's look at the execution in Flow Designer and see what the feedback is. So what's the actual error? Is
invalid into
action group email address. What is action group email address?
That looks like maybe it's a data pill that's not being parsed correctly.
Yeah. Let's take a look at your action and see, where's that even come from? Inputs or something? No.
Was it domain name? Where are we? Here. Group email address.
Action group email address. Where's that even at? It is the inputs. Okay.
No, that's a different action.
Oh, that's a different action.
Add member to a group. I have a feeling that this might be one of those janky actions from
did you
exporting, importing, quite possibly. Let's just ditch the whole.
Yeah, let's create a new action. Yeah. I'd just create a new action.
All right, we can do that. New action.
We've got all the bits, so we can reproduce it really quickly. But
Google Apps spoke. So actually retrieve all groups. That's fine. I don't think I set up. Oh no, I did group management. Retrieves all groups.
So this is one of the things I've learned is if you copy an action, don't rewire any of the inputs.
Right.
So I'll remove them and add new ones.
So we needed the domain, and we needed the customer key.
Yep.
And they're both probably mandatory.
And now we throw in the REST step.
Where
down
integrations.
And if you're working on a ServiceNow instance,
the 4K screen,
and you don't have the REST step there, you know, if it's a personal developer instance, you have to go to the developer site and use the actions and manage plugins, add plugins from there. If you're using it in your company's site, you have to contact the support to add that sort of thing.
Talk to your account rep.
Domain. Customer.
Something else you can teach me is how to paginate stuff, because I haven't done that with a REST step. Not that I have a lot of example groups in my test instance, but
we can definitely get into some pagination. In fact, when Orlando comes out, I will be having some specifically focused things around pagination.
Oh, that sounds exciting. Now let's set a default value so I don't ever have to...
Default values are good.
Yeah. Type that again. Save.
Give that a save and a run.
Test. Oh, look, that's handy.
That is handy.
Completed. And
200.
oh, look at that.
All right.
We have
So
group 1, group 2,
two,
and group 3.
yay! And I hope so. Before you press a button, I always say you should know what victory looks like. Do you? Was your
Yes,
assumption that you get 3 back?
it was,
Oh, good,
because
because that's how many you had.
I I heard you last week. That was something you said last week, and I said, you know what? That's one of those things that I never do, but probably should.
I'm a record player. I play the same records over and over until people start dancing to the tune.
Awesome. So we've got 3 groups in our Google App admin group. Unfortunately, they don't all have members.
But we did get
Yeah.
back what was expected, which was 3 groups. So
Yeah.
that's
Perfect.
fantastic. That's great. And so you already had a partial parse step built, or was it just a place?
I did. I don't know how far I got past parsing some of these objects back into
So
outputs.
let's test my hypothesis,
Hmm.
and just create a new input on this one, the old one, this one.
Just a new input here.
Yeah, just delete that input, the domain one, and create a new one, and see if that's what was our issue.
And we wanted customer. Oops. Oh, now I've lost it. Luckily, I have it saved
Yeah, it's
in.
right on this other one.
Yeah.
Very handy.
And then update
Then,
our data dots.
because we pulled out domain, and so now we can drop it back in.
And customer key. I don't actually have a max results. So I'm just going to set that as 1,000. And we'll test again.
That might have actually been the error, was that data
Max
field that
results.
didn't exist.
Yeah, look at that.
Sweet.
Awesome.
So we changed too many things. So it's one of those 2 things. Either one of the actions that we were using was faulty, or the action that we were using that didn't exist anymore was faulty because it didn't exist.
Yeah, but anyway, it's fixed, and that's the important
It's
thing.
fixed, and that's the important thing. Sweet. So we're getting our groups now, and now we want to parse it. And you've already started on that. So you want to let's take a look at. We just ran this. Let's see what this did.
Oh yeah, okay. I'll jump back to one of these executions that actually worked. Didn't do a lot. We've taken.
We took this structure, yeah. And
Yeah.
what's our goal from this structure? What's the output of our action want to be? What do we want it to be?
So I think we want to. I don't know. We want to populate probably the groups table with these groups.
So that's I think so. Early when we were talking about how we wanted to do this, I said that I'll have more on this later. Now, later is now. So you were talking about basically importing and storing this data locally in ServiceNow.
I was thinking about that.
Is that what you want to do? Do you need this data, and will it be accessed a lot?
So how my use case is obviously
is there
on the
chance
fly
to get this data on the fly as you need this? Because that's an option. We can do that.
So if it's used in catalog items, when a user's like, I want to update a group, here's a list of groups. What group do you want to update? Do you think that the loss of the time that it would take to do a call to pull in all of the groups and present them on a catalog item is worth storing it locally for?
That's essentially the question, right?
Yeah.
Is my user experience there? Is the possible slight delay worth the possible slight wrong. Like
Of the data
that's a
being
balance,
stored.
right?
And yeah,
Is if you're storing data locally, your data is not real time, right?
yeah,
And could potentially be wrong because it's got bit rot, right? So
yeah.
is
But
the
then,
potential for it being wrong uh, a a big problem or not? And
mm,
if it's a big problem, then you get it right then. And if it's almost never going to be a problem, and the time will be long because maybe the service you're polling is slow, or
yeah,
uh, there's a variety of things you measure there as a developer at that stage to say, I have choices. I can do this a bunch of different ways. What is the least risky way that's the easiest to do?
yeah,
It's how
um,
I do it.
yeah. The,
What
the
will
the
deliver the
other thing
best
I
experience on average and the least worst case experience that could happen fairly frequently.
yeah.
So,
I also want to think about, is there any other use cases for having that data in the system, such as you could look at a user's person profile and you could see that they are already in these email groups.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I was thinking of this in the silo case. If
Yeah,
there are multi cases of using the data directly inside the system, that leans it towards storing.
storing.
But
And I think that's the way we're going to go. Also, because our organization is fairly big and we have a couple hundred groups, and I'd probably prefer not to have to deal with pulling all of that in every single time someone loads a catalog item.
oh, that's still a pretty low overhead. Um,
Yeah,
if you were talking about, tens of
thousands.
thousands of
Yeah.
groups, I might lean towards, yeah, that's a periodic poll, and we increase our frequency based off of how important failure would be, or do
Right.
post checks, that are more asynchronous, that can let the user know, oh, well, we checked and we're sorry, this group wasn't the right group. It doesn't exist anymore. You need to do whatever. Um, but yeah, in the case of 100 or hundreds of groups, I wouldn't worry about that. But if you want to do business, if you want to do business logic based off this data for
Mhm.
more cases, then that leans towards storing it locally in ServiceNow
Okay.
and just
Well,
getting it periodically.
what's more fun for now? um,
I think storing it locally is good.
okay.
I'm just starting to, now that we have more tools in ServiceNow to be able
Yeah.
to go get live data and more real-time integrations to that when those
Yeah.
are appropriate, I like to use them because when they're appropriate, like if you're doing a sync between ServiceNow and another enterprise system you're employing at your company, you don't want to store their data in your system
Mm.
pretty much ever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's an enterprise system and you're an enterprise system and both of them are operating at good levels, and their systems performant and your systems performant, um, don't copy their data into your system so that you can
Yeah.
do stuff with it occasionally, because you'll cause more problems. That's less enterprise worthy, is to store their stuff in your system and operate on it in a lagging manner.
Yeah. But unfortunately, that's where we are with a lot of stuff. Sometimes you don't get APIs; you just get
It- and
the
yeah,
admin
I
like,
mean,
"Oh, I
10
can give
years
you a
ago,
CSV."
that was the only option, right?
Yeah.
Like 10 years ago was, I get this data once a day and that's the only time I get access to it.
Yeah.
So that's what I do, is I pull it into my system once a day because that's the only way. We're a little more flexible now. So
Mm.
let's pull it in. And so we're going to store this where you said you want to store
Probably the
this in a
groups, like
group,
they are
actual
groups.
like
So
sys group table.
yeah, I think there's a group type field. If on here, is there?
I know there's a user type, and there's a group type. Yeah,
Yeah, type.
absolutely a type. I use that all the time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we use it for things,
So
stuff.
reference fields have many a filter on that type field. So when you're on the incident form, it filters it out. When you're on a
Yeah.
story, it filters it to the agile groups.
Yeah.
Types are useful. So
So I'll
storing it
chuck
on the
that
group.
on the form, and yeah, we'll store it in here. We'll set up a new option in the choice list so that we can say it's a Gmail group.
It's
If it's a
hilarious,
choice list,
and it's a reference field.
oh,
It's
I'm
not
in the
even a
wrong
choice
scope.
list.
MU scopes.
Scopes are so needed and
Yeah.
so occasionally painful.
Yes.
Scopes are important and painful.
Yeah. Thankfully, with batched update sets, it gets a little bit easier.
I am a fan of the batching.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know what batching update sets is, and you're also using update sets, please go to the developer blog and read my 4 entries on batching update sets, because it will change your life.
Yeah, do it. It's worth it. Bullet.
So we're getting
Gmail.
a new
Description.
type.
Type of group from Google GSuite. There we go. Gmail.
And so in order to create a group, I don't need a lot of things, right? I need the group name, the group manager, and that's really all I have to have for a group, right?
I don't even think you need the manager.
Well, if I care about the manager, I want to populate it. If I don't care about the manager, but a lot of times I like to know who's
the
for some
other
groups,
thing.
it's important.
The other thing with Google Groups is that they not only have managers, but they have owners. So you have owner, manager, and it's a multi-user field. You can have multiple managers or multiple owners. So how are we going to...
Yeah, in order to accommodate that, we would have... And I think that multiple owners, I tend to stray away from that. But multiple users authorized to do things with a thing, I am okay with. So I frequently have, so for example, for our meetup groups, so around the world in 65 cities, we have developer meetups, and
we host.
We have a singular owner of a meetup group, and we have co-organizers, and those, so there's always a singular person responsible for the thing. So I think that a reference field is the right thing for almost everything, for true ownership. And then as many more people as you want to involve in a thing, knock yourself out. List it up all the time. Many to many list, I don't care. But
so my question
only
is,
ever one person responsible for a thing.
Yeah, like unfortunately, Google doesn't agree with you. They can have as many owners set as we want. So do we put a field on the group table that is Gmail owner and Gmail manager that only show up when the type is selected as Gmail? Or do we update the...
So are you going to use that data in ServiceNow? Is that data you actually need?
Yeah, so we want to send approvals to the owners of the group whenever a request to modify it is put through. We also want people to be able to specify when they're creating a group who the owner or owners and managers of that group are.
And how do you want to leverage that? So there's a couple of different ways to leverage that. And so initially, I think that most of that lends itself to an M2M.
Yeah.
Where,
So a new
sort of like
M2M
group.
table.
Yeah. So sort of like you have group members. So you can either are all of your owners and managers of a group members of that group?
Yes. You have to
And
be a member to be
if
an owner or
yes,
manager.
that might be a use case for extending the group membership to include that field.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking. The sys user GR
Group
member table.
Yeah.
GR. Yeah, that's the one. All right. So let's do that. We'll go to tables.
Well, no, just right click
No.
on the breadcrumb there. Right click on the breadcrumb group. Yeah. Open a new window.
Ooh. I do like learning.
And
new
now
things.
this is that table, which is sys user
Yeah.
group member, and then you can do whatever you want from here.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, I think configure table. And we want to add new column. Do we want? So how are we going to? Is it going to be a reference of?
This it's a choice list, right? Of what kind of member they are. And
so
I lean either way on these sometimes. So sometimes I like to make them string fields that are choices, and sometimes I like to make them choices that are choices. But
I was having a play with that. Are they different? Or when you create a choice, does it become a string with choices?
It is a choice.
Just to blow your
choice
mind.
is a type. So
yeah.
It's not a string. Choice is a type.
Okay.
But strings can have choices.
Okay. So the answer is yes.
So the answer is yes.
Yes. Just yes. So we want with none. That's fine. We'll save this. And we'll make some choices. So,
and I'm not sad to have this on the sys group member user. Now, if your use case is divergent enough that it can't possibly apply to other groups, then I say you make a new table, right?
Yep.
But I feel like this could be generically applied to regular group membership for anything. Like I could have owners and members and managers and interested parties of any group type that's in ServiceNow.
Yep. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And I wouldn't be sad to have those choices as a group leader to be able to designate people in my groups of different levels and then do stuff with that information. So I think it is fairly globally applicable, and therefore I'm not sad to do it on a very, because this table is a very important table.
Yeah.
And we seemingly went to it lightly, but we didn't really go to it lightly.
No,
is what I'm trying to say.
Like I've been thinking about this for a while, and like the many-to-many side of this leads itself to more extension than the actual group table.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like it's a PDI. Worst case, we just zboot it and see what happens.
Sure, but we're showing off real things that people are going to do in their real instances.
Obviously, with lots of testing, not just during an hour of drinking.
I'm doing quite a bit more drinking than you are, which is okay.
Yeah, I've almost finished my coffee. All right, so we've got the group table set up. We've got a type of Gmail, which we might have to go back and reference. We have the choices set up.
And so now
let's pull these and put them in places.
The parsing.
Yeah.
We need to be able to, what do we need for it? We need the name. And for the group, we basically needed the name, and then we need the membership. And I believe you've already done the membership, right?
Oh, yes, in a separate action.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then we need.
We'll probably have to do in a flow that actually pulls the groups and steps. Yeah. Okay.
So what do we need other than the name in the getting the groups?
So we need to get the name. We should probably get the
address?
email.
So that my hesitation with getting the email is putting an email in the email field of a group has implications,
Yeah, that's true.
which can be good ones. Like if that's what you want it to do.
Yeah. So for our use case, we won't be using these to email,
And
I
so
would
you
like to
probably
say,
don't need the email in the email field.
but we will need it to reference because all of the get users in groups require an email as an input. So I think
So you
we
might
get
want to
it.
store it in a field that's not the email field then.
Are we talking about extending the group table? Like how we were just saying we
I
shouldn't?
guess. Because there are implications to putting it into the email field that if
Like
you for some
it's
reason use this group
as an
to send a
assignment group.
notification or anything like that,
Yeah.
it'll treat the users and that group differently with that field populated versus not. Because it has a very specific.
I think we just populate it into the email for now.
Which
and
is
make
fine.
sure that
I'm
it's
comfortable
working.
with that. It's just that is a thing,
Yeah.
immediately that sets off the alarms and says, "Are you sure you want to do this?"
Yeah, and
And
it's
the answer
always
is
good to test.
sure.
Yeah,
For
why
now.
not? Yeah.
So we need
All
the
right.
email and the name. So
Yeah,
did
so
Parse
we
the
get it.
email and the name?
We get an array inside the return. We get an array of objects, and each of those objects has email and name and maybe description. We might grab that as well. I think we can put a description on groups. Yeah, we'll chuck that in as well. All right, so if we head back to retrieve all groups. All right, so we've got the response object, which is the response body coming in through our input variables from our REST step. Then we are parsing it into an object. Let's get rid of this for now. And then we're stepping for each group inside that array. We're adding the email. Now, I think I saw this working. If we have a look at the execution details, the actual output here is the list of groups.
Oh, good.
Now, I have forgotten to put a comma or anything in there, but it proves that it works. So I guess the question is, what do we want to do with this? Can we use
So what I want to do is make an
object
complex
output?
object output.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
That sounds fun.
And you can do that, and it's fine. And it makes me so sad that we're not like 2 weeks into the future.
Yeah, I saw the dynamic outputs in the Orlando thing, and hush hush.
Oh, makes me so sad.
There was a few things in those release notes that I think could have been really good here.
Really useful for this use case is parse JSON into complex object.
Yes. Oh, just freaking drop it and away we go.
Yes, which is really what we want ultimately.
Yeah. But
so we parse the JSON. Like, so we
when
just
you're
need
learning,
to build the complex object here, which is going to be fairly simple, right? We just need group and email. So we need name and email. So we need
name, email, and description.
Yeah.
Name is a string. Email is well, should we set it as an email type or should we leave it as a string?
You don't need to do the validation on it, so I would just leave it as a string.
Yeah. And
description. All right. That's
all right.
Forward.
Name, email, and description. Get rid of. Did I keep the other one? No. All right. So I haven't used one of these before. Do we just step into it like dot? Do we have to add a child item in this code to then populate that items? Because we're going to have 3 children.
I remember the last show I did with this, and we did it wrong on the show, and then I put it in the comments after the show as the correct way. This is one of those times where I'm going to go load the comments of a previous show and look at it, because
well, I'll let you do that.
I remember doing it wrong.
Play with it.
Because we couldn't figure it quite out on the show, and that is now hilarious to me, because I remember distinctly doing this on
so outputs.groups. Do we push into an object, or is that just an array function? Of groups. How do we? Oh, how do you add something in? Add an object in JavaScript, man.
So the thing is what I do remember is that you just push the whole object that you want into the output object. And that's
right.
it. So you build the object that you want in your script, and then you push the whole object into the output object is the part that I do remember.
Name,
and I'll get the
email,
specifics in a second.
Group, email, and what was the other part? Description.
It wasn't that long ago. It shouldn't be that hard to find.
Adding to an object.
Oh, poor memory.
That looks like it's almost too easy. I don't really want that.
I guess I'll try more recent. Nope.
What was the response?
I should probably be looking in my ServiceNow table of the description. Added an image of the working script. That seems like a thing I did.
This one. I don't really need any of that. I'm just going to get rid of those.
So I'm going to send you a Slack message.
Ooh.
With the image, and then you can pull that up on the screen.
Yeah.
So basically you build the object that you want to push, and then you just push the whole object, and you don't care about the hierarchy if you don't use parts of it. You just push whatever object you need into the output. So you don't do output dot something dot something. Like you just output dot,
keywords. I think this is similar to what I'm doing. Keyword, name, and score. And you're pushing that object back into.
So I'm building the keyword object.
So that's the output.groups, and I'm pushing in an object of name, email, and description.
Yeah, you're doing it all in one line, but that seems okay. I'm not sure how it's going to treat the looping of that, though.
Well, it's a for each function. It worked previously.
I believe
Let's give it a test.
I'm just new area. I get hesitant.
Yeah, testing's not going to hurt us.
Testing's not going to harm it. No kittens were harmed in the testing of this.
It also didn't work.
Okay. So none of the outputs were actually pushed.
populated there. All right. Is it? Do I make a new var out object equals that one?
And then
Response
put that
object of groups
inside
dot for each, and then
out object there instead of outputs. And then outside of that, you say
groups
dot
out groups equals out.
That feels more like what makes me feel safe.
But we're not here to feel safe. We're here to integrate stuff. Yeah, same result, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's.
Yeah. Do a little logging when in doubt.
Yeah. Group.name plus group.email.
Wait, what's group?
That's the instance of the
yes. Okay,
object that we're stepping through.
I see it on line 9 now.
Yeah.
I didn't see it before. I was like, where is group declared anywhere?
Sneaky. All right. Appear in script log statements, or do they just appear under flow log?
Sometimes they appear in flow, and sometimes
Yeah.
they don't, but we've got
yeah. See, they're not under a script; they're under your app. So if you go to script log statements, it doesn't pick it up. Interesting one, but we actually have the data for each of the groups. These ones don't have descriptions, so that's fine. So the problem isn't in getting the data, the problem is in building that output object.
Something between our script object and the
so this is
step output is not matching.
So I'm just trying to sort of understand. We've got keywords. JSON is the object. Keywords is an array.
And that's because we had an array of objects.
Yeah.
So
I think that's what we've got.
Is our array.
That's what we've got
our
now.
Output was an array of objects.
Yeah. Keyword is object. Object is keywords. So we're creating a new object with the item that in the array that was an object. And then we're building a new object from that. And then pushing it into an array. So
we have an array of objects.
An array of objects that's the output. Maybe that's what we're missing. Maybe.
Yeah. So if you only have a object, you're trying to push an array of objects.
Yeah. Okay.
Instead of an object. So you need another top level of an array of objects.
And we don't.
No, I think in the output variables is where we need to adjust, not necessarily your script. So your output variables is a object with some attributes. It is a object with some attributes. And what you need is an array of objects with some attributes.
An array of
right, because we have multiple groups.
That's true. So group. So what do we add? Maybe group in there, do you reckon? And then the data under there, is that what you're thinking?
Yes.
Yes.
Array.object. Yes.
Array.object.
Yeah.
Which has a child object, which you can't pick because we've told it that it's an array of objects. And then
you put the 3 things you had there, which was name, email, and description.
Name. That button, email, that button, description. 3 strings. Okay, so that needs to be an array of objects. So we still need the array, and then we create. Well, we probably shouldn't define something inside.
Yeah, probably not.
So we'll go out array.push, open, close. So we're pushing in a new object.
We don't really need out object at all at this point, which is fine.
No.
Just comment that sucker out.
Out array, and then that one needs to be out array.
That feels more correct.
And if it doesn't work, you go deeper, which is what we've just.
Well, if it doesn't work, we wrap up. And if it does work,
look at that.
Look at that. That is what we needed. And so now,
like when you run code and it works, it's amazing.
Now what we need to do is just map that to the action output, and then it's consumable by flow.
Yeah. And we've got, we're over time.
We are quite over time, but that's the next step. And no, it's okay. We run over time all the time. So let's drop back. So I think this is a good wrapping up point. Is our parse response is correct, and all we need to do is map between the step and the actions outputs. Which is very straightforward. So why don't we go ahead and drop out of share and into video and wrap up. Awesome. So that was a lot of fun. The Google APIs are always they're always interesting to deal with. One, because groups don't change quite as often as things like YouTube's APIs do.
Yeah,
they do change often. They're just not quite as often as some of the faster moving parts of Google's APIs. We have a chore of a time keeping up with YouTube's APIs because they change all the blooming time, and that's okay.
Yeah,
I like
who builds integrations for YouTube? Like, really?
I like a platform that's keeping current, but man, they change their stuff so often. So that was useful. So we were leveraging. We do this a lot on the show. We use IntegrationHub a lot because integrations are fun. And they're interesting. So today we used a fairly straightforward REST step API integration to Google Suite to get groups, their membership, the owners and managers, and we're going to populate that data into ServiceNow so that we can leverage that data in ServiceNow for what you appear to have a myriad of different use cases. But the core use case here is that you're trying to solve one of the highest volume requests you have that requires some physical interaction, not physical, some human interaction.
Yeah,
right?
Our service desk guys will be very happy to get rid of it.
Add and remove group members, create groups, and then a lower tier, but you get almost for free here is like changing group leadership.
Yep.
So you can manage the group managers also with this data. And then once you've pulled all this data into ServiceNow, then you can open up some possibilities of some further actions that you can have with this data. And we talked through being able to dynamically pull this data in. In your case, it doesn't seem like it's necessary, but that's an option that you have with Integration Hub, at least with New York forward. And then that opens that up to being able to get this information dynamically and use it in a variety of places.
Yep.
So that sounds like a lot of fun. Like,
Yeah,
I
I
love
had fun.
solving problems like this. Like it's been a lot of fun. Do you have any things that you've learned during this process
um,
that you want to share real quick
I
to
hadn't
wrap
played
this
with
up?
those. Yeah, those output objects. They're awesome. Uh, Being able to get an indeterminate number of things and push that output to another flow. I mean, I'm thinking of, next week when we do episode 2 and we actually build the flow, which brings stuff in. Then, yeah, no, I'm very keen to get stuck into that.
Awesome. So how have you had this coffee frequently, and how do you rate it? You have to rate
I
it even though it's coffee.
Yeah, 11 out of 10. I've had the coffee every single day for every single day for the last 10 years. I don't know.
Oh
How long have
wow,
I been working? As
that's a
soon
long
as it came
time.
out, I was a bit of a, I don't know what iced coffee I like. It came out, I was like, I like this one, and that's the one I'm sticking
This
with.
is yours.
Yeah.
So my Jefferson's Ocean was quite tasty. I enjoyed it. So this is a new one for me. I've never had it before today, and it's pretty pretty darn tasty. I like it.
Did it
So
taste like the ocean?
it didn't remind me of the ocean in the slightest, and I love sailing. But man, it's a 4.25 out of 5.
Mm,
Like it's good. It might be a 4.5. I'm
wow.
gonna try another sip, and it might be a 4.5. It's really good. So
Can you buy
thank you,
more of it?
Andrew. Thank you for joining us.
No worries.
We
Thank you
had
for having me.
a fun time today. If you're out there in the wild doing this stuff, reach out to us in the Slack channel, community.servicenow.com. Come join us on the developer blog, developer.servicenow.com. Get your own instance, try these things out, share with your cohorts, your peers. This is the best way that we get to learn, is doing these things and sharing with others. And we can accelerate our own learning through sharing ourselves, because when you share something, people will comment on it and reply and interact with it, and then you get to learn things from your share, and you save other people some time, so that they don't have to learn all the same mistakes that you did, because we learn through our mistakes, and boy
Yep.
am I experienced. So thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend, and thank you for joining us from the future.
Yeah, no
Andrew.
worries. The day's good. So